The Aldis podcast is brought to you by Aldis International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Wouter van Groenestijn. Wouter is the data science and analytics leader at EY-Parthenon. Wouter, welcome to the show.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us on this. So Wouter, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. We want to talk about your background in technology and your journey. So could you walk us through that, your background in technology, where you got started and what's led you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. My journey starts, it's a long time ago in another millennium, really back in the Netherlands where I grew up. And at the time I always knew I was pretty good with numbers, but I had to decide what I wanted to do. I didn't want to limit my options to go into any particular field. I didn't fancy going into IT. So I wanted to know how everything worked, and I decided to study business economics, finance, and accounting. And then during my studies, I actually discovered a field called operations research. Wow. And that really fascinated me. So that really inspired me to do a degree in this field. And during my accountancy degree, I discovered two things. First of all, I didn't want to be an accountant. And second, I wanted to do more with OR and technology. And this field has subsequently evolved very much into what I'm doing today. So I ended up studying in England at the University of Warwick. I did a degree in management science and operational research, and that really gave me a quantitative problem-solving toolkit and mindset. At the university, it was very international, met people from all over the world. It also opened up my interest in Asia, where I've been for the past 18 years. I even met my wife there. But eventually, of course, after university, you need to find yourself a job. Again, I realized I didn't want to limit my options, focusing on any particular field. And what do? You end up in management consulting. So I joined KPMG Consulting in the UK, and I spent 6 years there in a specialist team focused particularly on financial modeling and operational research. And that's really where I started to get into this field professionally. I always wanted to go deep and really immerse myself in my projects. So I spent a year in Germany on a modeling job, 2 years in Switzerland, a year working in the rail sector, another 1.5 years doing the separation on a petrochemicals project for BP at the time. And that's, I did it for about 6 years. That became part of a broader group in KPMG called the Strategy and Commercial Intelligence Group. And that's really an area where I started to bring the modeling fields and the OR together with strategy and supporting decision-making. In the meantime, I got my CFA as well to get my financial t-shirts. So I was bringing together everything from the OR side to the strategy to the bottom line implications for businesses as well. But at the time, when we're talking 2005 here, I arranged for a secondment to Asia. So I ended up joining KPMG China in Shanghai, relocated there, and I spent another 6 years there, really better understanding how to apply my skills in the Asian context, working across all of Asia Pacific. I was looking after a commercial due diligence team over there, really straddling the area of commercial insights together with modeling and then the better use of data. Now, at that point, I'd been with KPMG for 12 years, and I started to move at the Zodiac in 12-year cycles. So I was given the opportunity to join EY in 2011 in Singapore, a different part of Asia Pacific, to anchor the modeling team over there. I was asked to really take on the modeling efforts at the time and really put things on steroids within the new strategy and transactions team and figure out really what are all the outrageous things we could be doing with data based on my background in OR and my modeling background, doing things that no one really could imagine at the time. And that's brought me to where I am today. I've been with EY now for the past 12 years, and I'm now heading up our data and analytics field within the digital technology practice at EY-Parthenon, the strategy consulting group. Again, bringing together everything data, technology, data science, OR, modeling and analytics, and merging it, marrying it with strategy.
Thank you so much for that. I think that the level of detail in your background is important because it sets the stage for what you're doing now. at EY-Parthenon, because it really is a super focused group working on some really interesting projects. So I want to jump straight into that, just to go a little deeper into what you're doing. Are you focusing on any sectors in particular? What type of immersive projects are you working on? What are the complex projects? So if you could just give us a bit of a run through of the day to day and maybe highlight some projects that stand out as being complex or meaningful.
One thing to note is that working in Asia Pacific comes with its challenges, and that also translates into the types of projects you do and how you go about it. So one thing to realize is that in Asia Pacific, it's a massive area where more than half of the world's population lives, but it's also incredibly fragmented. The quality of data differs quite considerably depending on where you are. In Singapore, data is very much complete and high quality, but elsewhere in Asia Pacific, you may have different challenges. I'll give you an example of what's a typical project or a project I've worked on that was most impactful in Asia Pacific, but also highlight some of the challenges. I did a project in Micronesia, and most of you would go, where on earth is that? So this is a small island group northeast of Indonesia. It is 2/3 the width of Indonesia, but it's only about 700 square kilometers, and it's got a small population of 100,000 people. But if you work in a small fragmented market like that, you can make a big difference. So in this case, we were able to use data and analytics to really help transform the entire economy from an economy that was very much dependent on US aid to see how they could become more self-sufficient in the energy space. So this type of a project, most of you can imagine, may not have been out to countries like this. But imagine when we kick off a project, you want to meet with the client, and you decide to meet somewhere in Guam, which is a US territory in the West Pacific. You actually end up flying there. It takes a day to get there. But when we met with my client over there, which was halfway there, I realized they'd already been on the way for several days. Because when you live in an island nation like Micronesia, FSM, apparently there's only one plane that on one day it flies west, and the next day it flies east, the island hopper. And it requires you to really factor in how you go about things. How do you connect very fragmented parts of the economy? So in this case, we were able to connect with the clients. Nowadays with Teams, of course, it's much easier, or with other types of communication tools. Back then, you really had to make an effort to meet in person, get all the data points required for the entire economy. And of course, in the absence of data, you have to make many assumptions. So the reality of being in Asia Pacific and working here means that you really need to be resourceful to get data points. You need to realize that it is still very fragmented. You need to be able to work across geographical barriers, cultural differences, imperfect information, and bring all that together. So that resourcefulness is important. And then you need to apply your data and analytics skill sets to say, look, if I understand where I am today, how can I take all this data and translate that into what the future should look like? So in my field, combining strategy with AI and data analytics, it is great to keep in mind how you can envision what a better world would look like. So in this case, you could really make a difference by identifying a series of strategic initiatives, backing up with data, how a country can transform itself by making better use of strategic initiatives and data.
So obviously you touched on the geographical challenges and implications of the work that you do in Asia. I know you and I were talking off air about some of the sectors that are particularly interesting and how you and your team are utilizing aspects of AI to impact whole business verticals. So do you want to share one or two examples that you gave me off air, and it would really help speak to the cool and interesting work that your team is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. One field that I've really immersed myself in for the past 8 years now has been the maritime sector. And as I mentioned previously, I like to go deep into areas. So in this case, I spent several years looking into how to transform the hovercraft sector in the region here. So this is the application of bunker tankers, pilotage, different types of support vessels in ports as well. So really to understand how can you transform a sector with data. So we actually initially figured out how to measure performance in the maritime sector, but then also continue to build an AI simulation, discrete event simulation model to really optimize how a sector can better perform by optimizing the resources available. But when you go deep, you really want to understand what's happening out there. So I'll give you an example that if you really get into a field what you want to do is go out there and literally physically go out into the field. So if you want to understand, for instance, what pilots do, these are people who go on board a vessel to safely and efficiently guide them into a port, for instance. The best way to actually understand that and what the data means is to literally go out there with the pilots out onto the water. So that's exactly what I did with my team. And these are some of the most memorable experiences you'd have. So one day we'd actually join the pilots to go out onto the water from the shore, go out to the boundaries of the port, and then meet up with a container ship, climb up on the outside of a container ship in the middle of the sea, really, to then board a vessel, help to safely guide it in, and then bring it into the port. And then the reverse, take it out of the port safely, climb down the outside of a ship, and then go board the pilot boat and go back to the pilot's headquarters. So these types of operations really bring to light how the operations, what they mean in reality. And when you look at data, what's really going on there, how long does it take for certain activities? Can you do it faster, more efficiently? What are the real operational constraints you're faced with? So that's just one example of how I got into really understanding a certain sector. Since then, I've worked on a long series of port and maritime projects. And by now I'm anchoring a solution within EY called EY Port Optimization. And that really brings together the use of data, analytics, and AI to help improve port operations. So that's just one example of like when to think about how I go about my work and what others might also consider doing is really try and put yourself into your client's shoes or your stakeholder's shoes, or immerse yourself in fields that the data relates to, really truly understand what it all means to you.
You are listening to the Aldis podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.aldis.com.
So Wouter, I want to spend a bit of time now just getting your perspective on the industry we're in as a whole and your take on the potential impact AI can have across multiple industries, what it means to you, and where you see some of the most exciting use cases for the technology.
There's been a major transformation in this field over the past 10 years. Like when I started in this field, we didn't have any data, hardware, software, algorithms. This is now ubiquitous. It's abundant. So it's really, in my field, it's all about the use case. So when you think about where you are and where we're going with AI, I would really focus on trying to find the best possible use cases available to you out there. So the technology is there for us to benefit from. The data is all around us. But if you are in your particular field, and where I think we should be going with this is try and find what are the best possible problems you could be solving around you, the most valuable ones to really benefit from AI and technology, so that you can measure it in different ways. So what's the best way to improve your top line, grow your business? What's the best way to improve your bottom line, grow your profitability, your efficiency? Or what could you be doing with AI that would be most impactful? And that may not necessarily be in monetary terms, but it could be removing pain in an organization or what you're doing, or just finding better ways to go about things. So for me, when I think about AI, I'm hoping that, and this is a big topic to me, I'm hoping that we can democratize the use of technology. So what I spend a lot of time on myself is seeing how can we take all the sophisticated tools nowadays that are becoming more and more readily available to us and democratize that. So can we, for instance, take open source software, data, algorithms, modules available to us, packages, and bring it to the desktop and find a way to easily incorporate it in everyone's daily lives so everyone can start benefiting from technology?
Final question from me then, Walter. I want to finish on getting some insight into what you love most about your role and how, when you reflect on your journey and you look at some of your skills and attributes, what would you say are some of the attributes that's helped you become the person you are in the AI space? So yeah, what do you love most about what you're doing now, and what's helped you get to where you are today?
I always think of this as almost like a Venn diagram, because people like us, we are analytical in nature. So it's really a combination, like what helps you be successful in this field is a combination of hard and soft skills. So for starters, you need to have the technical skills to really be able to know what you're doing with data and AI. So of course, you want to study all of that. But there's a difference between coding and programming skills and problem solving skills, or knowing how you can apply certain algorithms or approaches in your toolkit. But that's only the start of it. What really then brings you further in the field is a number of other skill sets that are not necessarily hard. So you may want to have that real intellectual curiosity, wanting to understand how things work, going deep into the sector, understanding domain expertise. You also need to have an appreciation for financial implications of what you're doing, because there are always going to be stakeholders that need to explain what is the return on the investment that you're making, what is the best way to justify the business case for what you're doing. You also need to have the right soft skills to be able to work with a variety of stakeholders, to create communication skills around it as well. And really, once you then start thinking about how do I articulate or sell what I'm doing here, the people skills, being able to explain things in such a way, and this is probably most important, being able to explain in such a way that all the technical things we're doing in a non-technical way. So can you take a problem that we can solve with data and AI analytics and explain in such a way that the benefits, the use case, the outcome is understandable to everyone around it, so everyone gets it. If you can do that, you will be set up for success in this field.
Walter, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Great to learn about your own journey and in particular your perspective on the AI space, just given your depth of experience and knowledge and the work you're doing at EY-Parthenon, such a focused, hyper-specialized group within an amazing organization, and so many use cases for how you're helping various industries benefit from this amazing technology. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. And yeah, we look forward to having you back on in the future.
Thanks, JP. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Aldis Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.aldis.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.